We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. Albert Einstein. The system is about to be flipped upside down. Please keep your friends and family aware. Like, subscribe, share these videos.
I'd like your take on this as well. My view is that if you wait until the markets are worried, it's too late.
Yes.
And your responsibility as a manager, whether you're a finance minister or chancellor, whatever, is to, as we come out of this, is to set a path, reasonable path for fiscal policy and some discipline around it. And that is going to be important. And that doesn't mean moving to a balanced budget overnight. We all know we're in a low interest rate environment, which is likely to persist for a period of time. But you don't want to be solely reliant on the goodwill of markets and on low interest rates, because after all, our objective is not to have interest rates rise for their own sake, but our objective is to grow jobs and the economy and productivity, economy and wages for people. And with that will ultimately come higher interest rates. So we actually want this to align. Organize yourself so you do it. So I do think having fiscal frameworks put in place as we come into 2021 or into 2021 will be important in the major economies, first point.
Our economy is based on economic expansion. The debt to GDP ratio is at an all-time high. If the markets realize it's too late, the DXY, the dollar index, is plummeting. Lower interest rates and QE are supposed to be temporary measures to avoid a depression. The stimulus is not stimulating the economy, it's expanding the money supply. The people are not producing more and they're not spending more. They're merely avoiding a catastrophe in the financial markets. The real economy has severe problems. Monetary policy is proving to be ineffective. The fiscal frameworks that come into play are the CBDCs, or central bank digital currencies, for the stimulus to get directly in the citizens' hands to encourage spending.
It's going to be a future development to watch and to move with, both rapidly but cautiously. To move with, both rapidly but cautiously. So let me try to explain where we are. First of all, we don't talk about CBDC anymore because all these acronyms are sometimes a pain in the neck, frankly. So we talk about a digital euro, number one. Number two, if you want to try to think of it as something, think of a banknote. It's like a banknote, but it's digital, and it's central bank money. So once you've said that, why would you explore it? Number one, because it corresponds to a demand. And this is something that clearly the pandemic has accelerated. We have noticed throughout Europe an accelerated demand for instant payment, for contactless payment, significant use of digital payment of all sorts. Number two, it's probably the case that it can be faster, cheaper, and more secure than other means of payment. In addition to that, if it can procure sovereignty as well as a good control of monetary policy, as we think it can, those are all good reasons to explore the opportunity, the feasibility of actually moving forward with a digital euro. Now,
when this implodes, society ends, or at least flips upside down. The global economy must adapt to issues that emerge from this slowdown. They need to implement CBDC, quote, rapidly, but cautiously. The legacy system is inefficient, insecure, slow, costly. By fixing the problem, that will increase transactions in the financial economy and the real economy. To transact quicker, cheaper, and more securely will increase the velocity of money. This means that our economy starts to run smoothly. They did absolutely nothing while times were good. Now there is a threat when things start moving. This is how the powers that be operate. They wait until there is a panic and they react to the panic. Nations are creating digital currencies, and this means they're making an intranet for their nations. A digital currency is not a super currency that solves every issue. The central banks and governments are not capable, nor do they want to solve every problem in these intranets. They will create a CBDC or digital fiat that they control, and the private sector will build on top and around the tech they offer. We see headlines like CBDCs are going to replace Bitcoin or Ethereum or XRP. However, the writers of these articles are looking for clicks, nor do they understand reality.
There's one element that we mustn't lose sight of, which is the need for interoperability. So there will never be a platform big enough to cover the world, and in fact the way things are moving geopolitically, the world in the future will be, the GDP will be much more spread around more evenly, so you'll probably end up with several thousand platforms developing and being used for different services and different groups of people. And in that world, it's really important not to lose sight of the need for open standards and interconnectivity between those platforms.
The intranets need the aid of the private sector, but so does the internet. The internet of value is all the world's walled gardens seamlessly communicating and exchanging value. When I say a walled garden, I'm saying a network. Every website that I want to purchase something needs to accept my walled garden payment method. Interoperability is critical in the next-gen financial system. Imagine if all your assets could be instantly converted into another asset. Suppose you were able to pay for lunch with stocks or barrels of oil. What would this mean for the global economy? To instantly trade the items that you need for the things that you have.
And do I worry about inflation? Look, in the horizon of normal central bankers, or not central bankers, 2 to 3 years, the horizon for monetary policy, it is unlikely to materialize to a serious extent. In fact, we need some inflation to come off from where we are, because there is a lot of spare capacity in this economy. You go back to the summer of this year, 1/3 of UK workers were either unemployed or on the furlough scheme, so they were at home. Right. They only got that down to 4.5% unemployed and 9%, it was 10% rather, on furlough. So you had 15% idle in the economy when things were picking back up. So there's a lot of, and I can replicate those numbers elsewhere, so there's a lot of spare capacity that's still there. That said, the point is to reflate the economy, to pick it up, and as you get into the medium term, as a central bank, you want to have that problem. So they've positioned, this is my last point, they have positioned themselves, led by the Fed, that there will be some overshoot of inflation to make up for the missed inflation. That's the Fed's new framework, but some, not a lot. That, in my way of thinking, hopefully starts to become an issue, years 3, 4, 5 as we come out of this.
The cost of food is steadily increasing. Every time I buy my family groceries, I'm spending more and more. The central bankers have flawed models and they believe the problem is deflationary. We have a lot of capacity, meaning we can inflate even more. I'm getting out of the debt instruments that they approve and into assets with a fixed supply. The madness is never going to stop because they're either unaware of the problem or it's a vast conspiracy. What is clear is saving fiat is the worst thing anyone can do. iTrustCapital recently announced that they're supporting the Flare airdrop. iTrust offers IRAs with your favorite cryptocurrencies and precious metals. Be sure to check out the link in the description below.
It has downsides as well. And the way in which it is constructed, the way in which in particular it will continue to include banks, it will not crowd out private sector payments, are things that we need to explore. The way in which technology will be used and operated in a safe environment without giving rise to money laundering, to financing of terrorism and the like of it. And the way in which it will protect the privacy of the users are all, big question marks that need to be explored. So if you're asking me what is the timetable for that, I would say the job has begun. It is clearly in demand. But equally, I don't think that we would we should move too fast for the sake of being first out of the gate. It's a big working site that will take a few years before we are safe with it and we can launch and be comfortable that we are protecting the privacy, that we are maintaining sovereignty, that we are securing monetary policy channels, and that it's providing fast, cheaper, and efficient services to Europeans.
Know your customer, or KYC, anti-money laundering, or AML. The platforms that are accepted by mass adoption will incorporate RegTech, artificial intelligence watching the ledger at all times, flagging suspicious activities. Imagine your grocery list flagged for suspicious activity and having to answer police officers because you bought fertilizer.
We're going to see more and more examples where the payment is part of the transaction, of the purchase or the consumption of a service, and I think that is going to be super important. I think we should stop talking about the technology and start talking about the use cases and really help consumers and businesses doing payments better, cheaper, more efficiently. And whether it's an ISO or blockchain or an Ethereum, it doesn't really matter, the underlying technologies, to the public and to businesses. And we need to think about how we really focus on the customer. And I think if we look at real-time payments, which we've touched on a couple of times already in the last hour, that is going to become more and more across the world. And that is going to drive the next generation of fintech. And whether that is going to be digital currencies or fiat currencies, it's going to be both in my opinion. But I think what we're going to find is a load of very exciting, innovative companies and ideas that are going to start the next generation of fintech, which is going to use these digital assets and create some amazing inventions that we haven't even thought of. And that is going to be fantastic to be part of that industry over the next few years, where people are going to link into exchanges, are going to link into different technologies and create something for consumers and for businesses, and that is going to be super cool to be involved in.
During the dot-com bubble, we saw websites emerge left and right and become overvalued. The giants appeared like Facebook, Google, Amazon, mixed with the Pets.com and the Ask Jeeves. Today we're watching networks with tokens emerge. You can gain access to the network or utilize the network by spending the tokens for its utility. What networks are the Amazons, the Googles?
The digital side, I do think, Tom, you're right in that one of the accelerants of COVID and the experience of the big shift towards online, with which we're all familiar, has been to reinforce the importance of further innovation, the innovations that have happened and further innovations on the payment side. In the end, at the heart of that will be, in my judgment, ultimately a move towards central bank digital currencies, monetary innovations that stick, that have value, ultimately are appropriated in through the public sector. One of the things, and you're familiar with it, but maybe not everybody is that in the 2 months ago, let's say, certainly within that time frame, the Bank of England, the ECB, the Bank of Japan, the Reichsbank, the Swiss National Bank, Bank of Canada, the Fed, all published a very important report on central bank digital currencies. It's one of the last things I've sort of commissioned with Christine Lagarde when I was leaving. It helps lay the groundwork for ultimately having a digital currency at the heart of our financial system. And the types of innovation that will come from that will be quite substantial. So,
the virus has accelerated the adoption of this technology. The central banks around the globe collaborated on a report on central bank digital currencies. The conclusion of that report is to have digital currencies at the heart of the financial system. If digital currencies are at the heart of the next-gen financial system, what does that mean for the crypto markets?
Yeah, look, I wouldn't say more regulation. This is not like your breakfast cereal box where it talks about weight, not volume. I don't think we need 50 regulations instead of 2. But what we do need is clarity about what's allowed. And so we need some guidance, for example, about whether banks can connect directly to blockchains as payment networks. The answer has to be yes, right? We needed answers about, can banks custody cryptocurrency so that institutions felt comfortable adopting? And you saw what happened when we gave that clarity. So you have clarity across a variety of areas that I think you'll be seeing just in the next 6 to 8 weeks, which will make it easier for crypto investors to know how to invest, to know how institutions can be in this asset class. And those are the things that are driving prices at this point. You know, it may have been a bubble 2 years ago, but with more clarity, institutions that see this as a real thing are going to adopt at scale, which they've already started to do. So stay tuned.
The digital euro discussion will take place by January 2021. Brian Brooks just said that in 6 to 8 weeks before the president's term is up, we will have clarity. Banks will be able to custody and utilize crypto networks, adopting institutions at scale, utility, custody of crypto, and the ECB digital euro. Everything is lining up for a bright 2021. Stay tuned. Weakness of attitude becomes weakness of character. Albert Einstein. Thank you for liking and subscribing. If you enjoy my work, please consider joining my Patreon. I post my research on crypto as well as other coins on my Patreon. Remember to hit the bell for notifications.